And I'm like embarrassed to admit it because I feel like everyone should know Notion. But I didn't know Notion.
This is Ivanha, the head of marketing at Jam, who has turned Notion into the secret weapon behind her startup's marketing success.
I even made a household management Notion for me and my husband.
Ivanha went from Notion skeptic to avid user when her boss at Superhuman introduced her to it.
It was sort of a little bit by force that I learned it, but I'm really glad that I did because now I could never go back.
And her practical approach to Notion makes it a perfect guide for anyone looking to implement Notion at their company without getting lost in unnecessary complexity. So in this episode, you will learn how a marketing professional discovered and adopted Notion.
At first, I was like a little bit hesitant because it can be a little bit intimidating in the beginning.
The challenge of implementing Notion in a startup environment.
So sometimes spending too much time in Notion is not what you want to be doing, right?
How you can adopt Notion to fit your personal work style.
I mean, if you're going to spend your 30 or 40% of your day looking at one thing, then at least it should be something you like to look at.
And the actual and super simple Notion setup that Jam is using as an early stage startup.
So this is the actual marketing hub at Jam. This is what it looks like. This is like the real thing.
What would you say is your 2-minute, live elevator pitch?
That's so funny. Elevator pitch. I don't think I have an elevator pitch, but my quick story background is that I was a journalist. Well, I studied journalism in school, and then I never worked as a journalist. I went sort of straight to marketing. The journalism to marketing pipeline, it's a thing, but I wasn't in tech until later. So I got my first job in tech actually by chance, by accident when I was around 20, 24. So it's been a few years now, but definitely later than some people, right? And before tech, I was more kind of doing nonprofit marketing for nonprofits, this kind of work, especially with the Latino community in Boston. I used to live in Boston. So that was sort of what I had been used to. But then I started working at this company called TalkPush, which is a Chinese company that has a software for high volume recruitment. So the Walmarts and Amazons of the world that have really high turnover, and you need to hire hundreds or thousands of people per month. So I started there and I loved it. I loved kind of the tech world. I loved marketing for tech, and I feel like progressively every job I've gotten has gotten more, it's so meta. It's SaaS for SaaS for tech for SaaS for SaaS for SaaS. And so now I am working at Jam, which is a dev tool startup, and we are a bug reporting tool. Basically, it automates bug reporting. It's a browser extension that you just plug into your browser, and it captures your DOM and everything that the developers need to debug, the logs, the network requests, even your metadata and stuff. So I can send perfect bug reports without knowing what any of that stuff is.
Perfect.
Yep.
Amazing. Yeah, that's thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, Jam is an amazing tool. Link for that also in the description below. So that's your journey to tech. How did you, along those lines, discover Notion? Did that happen at Jam? Did it happen before? What were your first touch points there?
So my first discovery in Notion, and I'm embarrassed to admit it because I feel like everyone should know Notion, but I didn't know Notion. I worked at TalkPush for 2.5 years, and during my time there, I never heard about Notion. I didn't use it. I used multiple different tools like Trello and Asana, and those are all great. I'm not, but I didn't use Notion. So the first time I ever saw it was when I switched jobs and I started working at this company called Superhuman, and they all use Notion heavily. And I worked on the marketing team. I worked closely with our social media manager. His name is Tyler at Superhuman. Shout out Tyler. And it was such a Notion power user. And I was this looks amazing. My first thought was so he had built out this sort of social media calendar where we could do so many things at once in that calendar. We could see what's coming up, what's happening, what's been published. We could get feedback, comments, we could edit. We could do, so it was visual feedback, review process. It was all sort of in one Notion calendar. And I thought that was like amazing. So that was my first interaction with Notion. Although at first I was like a little bit hesitant because it can be a little bit intimidating in the beginning. Like, I mean, he was a power user, but to me, looking from the outside, it seemed like kind of a complicated tool, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know, I'm sort of like a tech laggard sometimes in some things. And I was like, you know, this looks awesome. You're so good at it. But in my mind, I was like, it does sound like extra work for me, right? Rather than just like making my lists wherever I make them. So it was sort of a little bit by force that I learned it. But I'm really glad that I did, because now I can never go back.
Yeah, I can imagine it is a tough learning curve. Like it's not like I think it depends very much on the setup, right? And like in particular, if, like someone who knows a lot about the tool sets up a system, right, that works for them and their workflows, and they use all the bells and whistles, and then you work with it and you look at it and you're like, what are all these properties? Where can I click and why does everything disappear if I like click on the wrong thing? It can be quite intimidating.
And it's also like you feel like, so you see this like amazing thing with all these buttons and this like, you know, connect to database or whatever, and you're like, okay, this is great. There's no way I'm gonna be able to do this. Like when you first look at it, so that can be sort of discouraging. Like, why am I even gonna start using something that I know that I cannot power use, right? But you can and you will. It's not that hard.
That's a perfect message for this. So maybe you could say a little bit more about that. But like, how did you get over the hump from like, oh my god, this looks so complicated, I'll never be able to do anything with it, to, you know, building that for like a company?
Yeah. So, well, it's not like I built all of Jan's Notion, just marketing, how we run marketing in Notion. But yeah, I think it's sort of just trying to do stuff for myself, how I would like to have it, like what, and then I'm not trying to follow like that's sort of how I got more familiar with it and started liking it. Is I wasn't trying to follow anybody's advice. I wasn't trying to do anybody's database. That came later. Now I do that. But at first I was just sort of like playing around with it, like what do I want? What do I need? What helps me work better? And whatever that looks like, right? And so you start exploring, like you do the little slash whatever, and you're like, oh, slash command. You're like, oh, a toggle might be good in this situation because my list is getting long or whatever. And so you start just like noticing all these things, and you get better at it. And also looking at people's Notions that are like really pretty helps, because I'm like one of those girls who like, okay, I feel like I have a theory, like all the girls that are, and boys that had like their like notebooks and agendas like filled with colors and color coded and everything. Like I was that girl in school. I feel like now we're all in Notion.
Probably like a very direct line. My books like look completely chaotic, right? No one could read anything. So my Notion Workspace are very minimalistic. It's sort of like I like
yeah, me too. I like seeing things. Like at first in Notion, I was way more like, because I was trying to be all fancy. And what would happen is I would be like trying to find stuff, and it's like you would have to go inside a page, into another page, into a calendar, into a tracker. And I'm like, I just want to like see things. So that also takes some practice, right? Getting the handle of it, because Notion allows you to get really granular, and that's awesome. And you can be granular in certain things, but you do need to make sure that like you have things that are easily viewable and you can see like what's happening this month, right? And you don't need to like go to a million different places to see like a general overview of things.
Yeah, I agree. Like that's one of Notion's superpowers. I like being able to pull things in one place and not having to context switch constantly and be like, oh, I need to look that up. I probably looked at it right now, and then I, clicked away, and now I forgot again what I looked at. So now I need to click 10 places back. So that's where it becomes really, really, really helpful. But I love also like what you mentioned with the playful approach, right? I think that's like the often the solution, in particular if you have the freedom to explore a bit. Most people that I talk to, right, that become Notion power users are the ones who just like, tinker a bit with it, and then like, realize, I start getting curious, like start playing around with this one, and like what happens if I do that, and just to probe, like, because it is a box of Lego, right? Like it is if someone hands you like a box of Lego for your systems, and if you like playing around with it and exploring what all the blocks do, then it's a lot easier to go through this initial learning curve, rather than having, a specific system and then trying to like, okay, I need to stick to that, someone build it for me, I need to somehow figure out how to use it.
Yeah. And that's the cool thing about Notion, right? That nothing is prescribed, right? So like, there's like a lot of task management tools, right? The thing is, like, I wouldn't consider Notion like no, you can use Notion for task management, but you can use it. You can even use it like as a sales CRM if you wanted to. So it's like super wide the stuff that you can do with it. But where was I going with this? I don't even remember.
Nothing is prescribed, right? You can't do anything with it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So nothing is prescribed, but one thing that does help, right? Because I think at the beginning, like stepping into a blank canvas can be like, what do I do? And sometimes it does help to have a little bit of prescription. And what I've done a lot actually, and I love doing this, is like searching for templates. Like there's so many awesome community templates that you can grab from, and then just like tweak and customize to your liking. So like I've grabbed like content calendar templates from there, task management templates from there. I even made a household management Notion for me and my husband. I was like, because I was like, one day I was just so tired. I was like, like house things like come up, and it's like we haven't cleaned the AC filters in 6 months, and how can this happen? And he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, okay, this doesn't happen to us at work, so why don't we just implement some of the stuff that we do at work at home? And we ended up with like a home database.
Do you use it? Is that in use still?
No.
It's no. I think it's too bad. Like I thought like that would be a really cool example. I'm not sure whether you saw it, but like Ben Lang, like one of the first people at Notion, like started building community for them. He went viral recently because he shared like the Notion home base that he I think his wife used to run things, and like a lot of people were like, oh, how can you, like you can't run a relationship like a project management tool, but like you can, like if it works.
Yes, you can.
Yes. Exactly, like regular check-ins, one-on-ones. They're all important pieces, both in work and at home.
I think like the database that we ended up with was really great, and like we did use it for a few months. The thing that ended up happening is like it's not like it doesn't work for us or anything anymore. It's just that because Notion got us so organized, now it's like things are on autopilot, so we don't really need to check in. But it did help. Yeah.
Holding the systems, and then you can get rid of the training wheels. I love it. Amazing. Yeah. So and then from there, so you implemented Notion, or like you worked with Notion at Superhuman, then you implemented Notion for your relationship with your husband at home, and then you joined Jam, right? Like an 18-person startup, and then you helped them build out their Notion Workspace. Could you maybe like talk us through that process and share a little bit more about like what happened there, how it came to that?
Yeah. So when I first got to Jam, I've just always, I had already been used to, by that point, I had been working at Notion for like maybe two years. So I was very used to working in Notion, loved it. And, but I had been using Notion a little bit from a different place than at Jam. And I actually didn't realize that until a bit later, but I had been using Notion sort of like as an accountability, like with my manager, and to like show my work and to make like, and so like my managers could sort of have visibility into what I'm doing. And it was a little bit more prescribed. Whereas in Jam, like I joined as the first marketer. So there wasn't that much accountability like in marketing team to do. There was more like self accountability that I had to do. And then there was also like certain processes that we needed to set up just so we could have, and also Ian, right? He's also part of the marketing team. So like, how can Ian and I work best in Notion? And I think that at first I tried to sort of repeat kind of the dashboards and the stuff that I had going on at my previous job, like that my manager had taught me because it worked for us. And it didn't really work that well at Jam. And so that's where I learned, like, Notion is truly a blank canvas. And so you can really adapt it to the working styles of your team. And so what we ended up doing is maybe just like 4 or 5 simple boards I can show you, where it's really easy for us to track specific things that we do. Like we have some big initiatives, right? That are like, we host in-person events. So we have like an events dashboard tracker planner page. And, We have experiments and projects. So some people would have like experiments in one place and projects in another place. But because we're a startup, projects and experiments are often one and the same. and so those two are great. Ian has like a content calendar that I almost never look at. Like that's kind of like his stuff. I have like a balls in my court list I'll show you, which like nobody looks at, it's just mine. And then we have this like what I call like the leadership board view. And this is where I'm accountable to Danny, who is my boss and the CEO of Jam. And so this is where Danny and I review like what are the marketing programs at a really sort of like bird's eye view. And we sort of go over it every month. And so we go through the whole kind of leadership view, and it's a way to see what we did, what we didn't do, what went right, what didn't go right, and just sort of like trigger our memories as we're looking at like all the marketing initiatives in one place. It helps you have like better discussions, triggers memories or even ideas. And so that's been great. And then I have like a little DevRel board, but mainly for like calls for speakers like CFPs, where we track that. And that's basically it. Like it's not like huge and scientific, but I'd love to walk you through it if you want.
Oh yes, yeah. Maybe we can like do that at the let's do that at the end of the call, and we do first like the remaining questions, and then I'd love to see what you've built and take a closer look. So everyone who's just listening at the end of it, right, like might be worth switching to YouTube to get a full picture. But yeah, before we look at that, I'd love to hear from you. When you built this out, like were there any challenges that you ran into, when it comes to using Notion or like getting other team members at Jam to use it? Anything that comes to mind there?
Yeah, I think like there's different levels of Notion usage depending on like company culture, right? And I would say that Jam is like a very much like action product development oriented company. So sometimes like spending too much time in Notion is not what you want to be doing, right? Because then it means that you're not building. So there's a little bit of that, and which like I think kind of changed me a little bit because now I also spent less time in Notion, but I just spent plenty of time. And so the challenge with that was, okay, like that makes a lot of sense. And especially if you're like a product manager, or if you're the product team or you're the engineering team, like sure, like you don't need to be writing whole diatribes in Notion. But if the marketing team, and especially when you get to like, customer team, there's like a lot of not so much like a feature that you're building or whatever, but there's a lot of like logistics that you need to coordinate, and there's so much of it that you can't really keep it in your head. And if you keep it like in little lists here and there, and in an Asana over here, and in an email over, like Notion is the place to bring that all together. So, but there's like a culture shift, right? Because like I remember at first, like I would send Danny, like here's this Notion, and like she'd be like, okay, but like what are you doing? Just tell me.
Yeah.
Like don't just finish. So that was a little bit of a shift. And I think that eventually what we've landed on is like, not everybody needs to like, Notion is not for you to give your team extra work. Notion is for you to keep track of whatever you're doing, especially because again, this applies to startups. I'm in a 2-person marketing team. It's just me and Ian. And so like, there's no need to like force everybody into our, whatever dynamics. So basically my style is more like I keep track of everything in Notion for myself. I do like a couple of like for example, like in the events or DevRel or whatever sort of pages, there's like a quick strategic overview at the top because, people can peek in, can look, and so it's cool that they understand like what marketing is doing and why. And especially like when we grow the team and we hire new people, I'll be really glad to have like that stuff documented. So that's in there. And then it's just basically progress trackers or task lists or just management logistics stuff, right? And so what I do with that stuff is I honestly kind of just communicate that via Slack and keep track of it in Notion. And whoever wants to go look at the Notion and check up on like more details, they can. But like the main message of like, this is completed, this isn't done, I need this from you or this from you, or I haven't done this. That's probably like via Slack. And then whoever wants more details, here's a detailed overview in Notion.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? Like I think that's like one of the key lessons also when you work with Notion is that you need to really make it. You can make it really fit to the culture of your team, right? That's a big advantage, but you also have to, right? Like there's not one right way to use it. There's certain like best practices that help. But like it also depends sort of like the stage that you're in with the company, right? It's like this like what brought you here won't necessarily bring you there. So like in early days of a startup, right, with a small team where you have a lot of face time with each other, where it's easy to communicate with the key stakeholders and like the people who own a certain area, they tend to own all of it, right? 2-person marketing team. There's not a lot of like things that you can miss in that context. And like everyone knows, okay, if I need to know something about marketing, there's like 1 or 2 people that I need to talk to. Then it's much easier to run a system, right, where you are like, okay, you own it, you keep it up to date, and then like you communicate elsewhere. If you grow, then right, and if you have larger teams, then you need more and stronger processes, and they don't have to happen in Notion. Like you kind of organize these processes elsewhere, but then you sort of be like the more people you have in a team, the less freedom everyone has to just work on their own and work in their silo, because at some like in a 50 people team, right, you can't talk to each other anymore on a daily basis. That's just unrealistic.
Yeah. You can't, and that's like that's why Notion is such a powerful tool, because it does work for my use case, which is small startup to marketers, and then it also works like it grows with you, right? Like this is sort of why I'm documenting like process, why I'm saying like our strategy, and I'm doing all these overviews, and nobody needs them right now, right? But I'm thinking we're gonna grow the marketing team, and it's gonna be great to have this, so like we're thinking towards the future there, and like also. In Notion, you can do a lot of processes that you would normally have to do, like when you're in a bigger team, maybe in multiple places. Then you can just keep that all in Notion. Like you can do a full content kind of from idea to execution process, all of it in Notion. You can have the calendar of what's there. Then inside each calendar piece, you could have the blog draft if you want with the images. You could receive comments and feedback there. You can have the status, like it's all there. So it's, I think for larger teams, it's also extremely helpful to just have everything in one place, and then anyone can just find it.
Yeah, and like it's so good that you put these things down now, right? Like a lot of times when I work with companies, that the problem is like that doesn't happen in the beginning. There are enough fires to put out in a startup, right, on a day-to-day basis, that sometimes you forget about, okay, what would be really helpful to future me in 6 months. But future you in 6 months will be very, very thankful that you at some point you've written these things down and you have documented it already. And the trickle down effects are so big, right? Particularly with AI becoming more common. Like, I'm not sure whether do you use the Q&A and Jam already for
Q&A?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the Notion Q&A.
Yeah.
I haven't really. I like tried it out. Like,
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what happens when and I love Notion. You guys are the best, but it just happened like when you use a feature for the first time and it doesn't immediately work. It's hard to then use it again. And I think that happened to me with Q&A. Like I searched for something and it wasn't like exactly. So I was like, haven't really tried it once after that.
Yeah. It needs to improve for sure. But like it already has come a long way. And like it gets better the more data you have in it, right? Like, and at some point, right, it then becomes really, really powerful, because even if you don't have someone like you, right, like who organizes the workspace and puts everything in the right place, so even if the things are like a bit less organized, makes it then easier to retrieve information in the right context.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm going to give it another shot for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's also like an update coming out sometime, like with some improvements. So after that, I think will be very, very exciting to see how it performs.
I mean, the new home view, I was like so excited about that. I have wanted that for ages. You know how I keep talking about everything. I sound like a broken record. Everything in one place. I want everything in one place. Yeah. But I really do. And so the home view is like another step towards that. And so I turned a bunch of my stuff into actually like tasks lists now, so that they show up in my home view. And it's great to see like events that I have coming up, a specific task from a specific project I can see, plus like a deadline of a big project. I get to see it all in one place.
All in one place. Oh yes, yeah, that's so cool. I can't wait also for when they they start allowing us to like aggregate things outside of home, like from different places. That will be such a game changer. So lots of fun things to come for Notion, I think, in 2024.
Oh, and their new website builder. I haven't tried it. Like I've done websites with Notion, right? Like I published Notion pages on the web, but I haven't tried their website builder yet. I am excited.
Oh yes, it's super cool. Like particularly like connecting custom domains, such a huge thing for companies, right? Like it's super easy to spin up these quick documents, in particular for things like like hiring people, these like things where you want something on the web, but it doesn't have to be like in the full-fledged form of your website.
Yeah.
And it's just a lot more professional if you have your own custom domain there instead of like the .notion.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
I should have known this. Oh my god!
How it's possible? Yeah.
I'm gonna have to tell Daddy about this because our careers page actually, like when you click into each of the job openings, it opens. Guess what? A Notion page. Now we can have our domain in them. Yay!
Yes. Perfect. So you know what to do like after the the
right after. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Oh, amazing. So we solved already, but they have so many updates, right? Like also like yesterday and the day before, like the 2 updates for editing, probably also like a big thing for marketing teams or like content-driven teams in Notion. They can now suggest edits, right? And you have like find and replace, 2 things that like just brings it a lot closer to like everything that you can do in Google Docs, but with all the Notion features on top. So
yeah, that's awesome. Actually, is that new? Because I've always been the person that says like, I love Notion for everything, but long form content edits I have to do in Google Docs. Like I've always said that. Yeah. And yet the other day I got some feedback or edits from Ian, and I saw that he actually had made like changes, like track changes, like you could like just like you can in Google Docs. And I was like, is this new?
Yes, it's like it fully rolled out 2 days ago. So sometimes you get access a bit earlier, but like the official full rollout has been 2 days ago. So that was amazing.
Okay, so Ian is like the one in the know because I had no idea. When I saw it, I was honestly confused. I was like, has this always been here? And I just didn't know like what.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So now we have it. Amazing. But it's a good segue actually, because you were talking about, right, like so far, like in Notion, like long form content, for example, you were doing in Google Docs. What would you say, like if you look at Notion holistically as a tool, what are some of the key strengths where you say like that's where it really shines? And then also very important, like some weaknesses where you say, well, you could do it in Notion, but you're sort of like shooting yourself in the knee. I'd rather do that outside.
Here's something I think about Notion that like I could talk about like its capabilities and features like all day, but I think that the bottom line, really, like what makes Notion so great to use and like why I strongly recommend it is because it makes your work life like prettier, more fun. It's more enjoyable, right? Everything in Notion works seamlessly. Whenever you do those slash, things will pop up. Everything is sort of easy to find. The design is super sleek. Like I sound like an ad, but I really love it. Like the design is really pretty. It's sleek. You can do fun things like, you can add like your little icons or your emojis. You can customize your pages. You can do like banner images in the background. So you get to have like really pretty looking documents and progress trackers and stuff. And I think that makes a huge difference. Like, if you're working in an Excel spreadsheet, it's like kind of ugly and you're in there, but like in Notion, you're like in this beautiful space that you've built for yourself. So I think that's the main reason. Like that's reason number one. If you're considering Notion, like think about just emotionally, it's better. But besides that, yeah, right? Like, I mean, if you're going to spend your 30 or 40% of your day looking at one thing, then at least it should be something you like to look at.
Yeah. Does it spark joy, right? Like
yeah. But what else? Like what makes Notion really powerful? It's the fact that it's like so easy to collaborate and sort of make it be what you want it to be. I think that this is also a little bit of a detractor. Like the same thing that makes it such a strong, powerful tool is what makes it sometimes maybe a tool that is hard to adopt at first because it is so open-ended, right? But luckily, like they do a lot to help users, right? Through templates and community guides and, people like yourself, providing lots of advice and tutorials and templates for people to get started. So I think that's, and they do have that issue of it can be overwhelming, but they do take a lot of great steps to solve it. So I would still recommend people try it.
Yeah, definitely. And maybe specifically like in the company environment, right? Like, have you seen, like, now that you've used it at two companies, right? Like at Superhuman and Gem, are there any
Yeah, I also used it at another company too, which was called
three
Focus.
even? Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any, like, like common pitfalls that you see in particular teams or like startups fall into when they try to adopt Notion, and then they run into a wall or make some mistake that you've seen now a few times that people should avoid when they try the same?
Yeah, I think that you can make it a little bit confusing for yourself, and then things end up, instead of helping you stay on track or helping you see what needs to be done and what's been done, it confuses you more because you end up having too many things in too many different places, and so it's like. Then sometimes, like, the person who needed to know this one thing, it wasn't in the board that the person thought it would be, and so like that sort of confusion can happen. That's like kind of like the biggest one that I've seen, but and I think that's kind of not just like an Notion problem, right? Like, I think that's just sort of a team kind of issue that every startup goes through at some point, of like, where are we going to keep track of this? Where are we going to do this? What is, and so it's not just Notion, but maybe Notion can exacerbate it a little bit because of how wide it is. But that's why I would always advise, like, simple. The simpler you can make it, the better.
Yeah, that's a good point. So if like a friend that works at like another startup or so comes to you and asks, seen you, like, us, you maybe shared that you are also Notion setup with them, and they're like, okay, I'm convinced. I also want to start using Notion. But I'm not, they're not sure how to start or where to start. What would you recommend that path?
Well, first, like, what do you want to use it for, right? So if it's like for a content, you said, right, like content publishing, editing workflow.
Yeah, like maybe at the marketing, trust they don't know, right? Like, they just saw that, like, you have something cool.
That's good. Yeah.
And now they want to do it, and they have no idea what. How.
So like I would first advise them to like figure out what they want to use it for. And so once you know what you want to use it for, then you can look for either templates that can help you get started, or sort of imagine in your head, like, what is the ideal productivity place look like for you to achieve this thing that you want to achieve, and sort of start making it. And you can borrow part of a template. For example, maybe you really like this content template because of how the calendar is styled, but you don't really love the review process. It doesn't really work for you. So you scrap that. You just take the calendar, and then you make a different review process. So I would say, look for inspiration, know what your goals are, and then sort of just try to imagine in your head the ideal thing that would help you achieve those goals the fastest and easiest way, and then try to make it in Notion.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great point. Like, I always like ask people, like, if you had a magic wand that you could just wave, and that like it would create a perfect software for you that does exactly what you want. Like, how would that look like? Because I think that's like a sort of like a perspective change from like coming from other tools. Where, I mean, there's a UI UX designer somewhere, right, who decide, well, this is how you use the tool, so take it or leave it. It takes it's quite a shift, right? Like, if you now all of a sudden have this blank canvas and this box of Lego, and you're supposed to build it yourself, it's very easy to fall into sort of like the trap of just replicating what you've seen everywhere else. And it's a good starting point. In particular, if it works for you, it's a great starting point. But it's worth taking the time to think, well, do I actually like this, right? Like, is that like how I work, or do I keep running into friction because I just hate writing these things down like that, or I don't use due dates, maybe, right? Like, but every tool forces me to input a due date. So what else could I do to organize my day-to-day things? And Notion allows you to run these experiments and like really question these assumptions. So I think like this, like, closing your eyes, imagining like how would this workflow look like if it wasn't perfect for you. That's a great exercise.
Exactly. And like perfect for you, right? Like, that's the key. I think a lot of the views that I have are kind of counter to what a lot of people would like. I really like to see a long list of things. I like that. It helps me. So I use a lot of toggles. But I can see like, June, January, May, and like a few bullets and toggles. Like I love that structure because it helps me instantly understand what's been going on, right? And like for how long and in my brain. But some people would look at that list of like toggles and it's like scrolling and they'd be like, ew, like this is, most people would probably say that's horrible. So, but it works for me and there's no template to it. I just liked it.
Yeah, the great thing right about Notion is like you can have this way of viewing your things and someone else can then set up like a different way of viewing your things. You can work out of the same databases, you can share the same underlying structure, right? Like tasks that pop up on your endless list might pop up on like a Kanban board of someone who likes very clean and minimal view. And you can both like customize the way you interact with the data, but you can still interact with the same data, right? Like it still flows from one part of the system to the other and you all contribute to the large organization.
Yeah, that's Ian's content calendar like scares me. Like that's why I try not to go in there that much. But the stuff that we have like in marketing projects, which is where I hang out, gets ported into his content calendar, right? So we both have the stuff that we need.
Yeah, perfect. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing all these insights. So now maybe if you want, I'd love to see what you were talking about with like how, you've set things up for Jam and give us a bit of a walkthrough of your system.
Yay. Okay.
Endless lists.
No. Those I will maybe I'll see. I'm not sure if they are. So I'm going to show you a few templates. And actually these are like available. Like if people want them, we published them on the blog a while ago. I added a couple more for this podcast, but
amazing.
Special sneak peek.
Yes. Nice. Link to all of these things down in the description so you can go ahead and see like how Jam is working and use that as inspiration for your own set.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen in just a second. Okay, let me know when you see Marketing Hub.
Yes, there it is. Perfect. I can see it.
So this is the actual Marketing Hub at Jam. This is what it looks like. This is like the real thing. And so like you can see you have like a bunch of stuff here, but like some of these are just like documentation process for documentation purposes. Like if you go into value props, what is it? It's just like our product value propositions, our audience, blah, blah, blah. So this is like the main three that we use. This is the one that Ian uses all the time. This is the marketing projects. And this is the leadership view that I was talking about. And then these are like individual sort of marketing programs. So I'll show you. Oh, why? Imagine that it was just like this when I first opened it.
It's like this.
So this is like the experiments and honestly just marketing projects, like feature launches and stuff go in here too, right? And so this is again, wide view. This is what's happening. This is the goal that it's working towards. And this is just the status. And here it's either me or Ian. And then if you open it, this is like an experiment example. So I like to include like the hypothesis, failure conditions. And then after the experiment's over, we'll do like a little metrics retro. Here, it's just like about the project. So important. And this is actually super important for marketing stuff, like not just for documentation purposes, but like for you as you're working through the assets and, briefing people in, because it's not, you're not working alone usually, right? Like I'll need design help and then like I'll have to coordinate with Maya, the PM, like, does this make sense? For like, is this the right way to talk about this feature, things like that. So super important to kind of include these details, and it will help you as you're creating all of your assets. And then this is just like the tasks, right? Like of the experiment, like what's happening. And I don't actually have statuses here because I have little checkboxes, which are easier. And what I have here is actually like stuff to remind myself, like if I'm blocked or if I ask somebody or whatever, of like what's actually going on. I found that more helpful than like pending or, oh, mom, so I just write what's happening.
Yeah. That's a great point.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. And so that's sort of the experiment for like template. It's actually like, if you open a new one, like it's a little template. So it just pops up. And then this is a launch example. So this, let's say like we're launching a feature. So again, like at the top, this is really important. What we want people to know, why would they care, and the tone in the audience. And it's good for you to keep that at the top because it's going to it's really going to help you as you're creating the assets. And then this is more kind of just a breakdown of everything that's happening, right? This is not so much an experiment. We've done it before. So it's more just making sure like the list of things, what is happening in each thing. And that's pretty much it.
The playbook.
The playbook basically. Actually, this is helpful. Like, I started doing this in recently. And so I divided each separate asset that I need from other people or myself into one thing instead of saying like email. Well, email includes a couple images from design, copy from me, review by Danny, right? So like in the asset list owners, I break down each individual thing, and then in launch materials, it's each complete thing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Great visibility, right? It's easier to then see like where you are along the way rather than having this big ominous task and you break those, like you're not quite complete, but like what is the next step? That's also not quite clear. And you just sort of think about this every single time you look at the task on your list.
Exactly. Yeah. And then this is our events board that I was talking about. So this is like all the stuff I was telling you about, like the playbook, the why we do stuff, blah, blah. But people, if they're like, this is so boring, they can just scroll to the table. Again, why does this keep happening?
Maybe it's something with the screen share that like messes it up. It's always the presentation effect.
Darn. Okay. So, and this is our
starts in the center, yeah.
Yeah, imagine that it started in the center. This is so, and this is the actual events tracker, like where the planning happens. At a glance, these are the things that I need to see. So I need to see who we're co-hosting with, and I need to see the most important part usually is how we're doing on speaker sourcing, because all of our events have speakers or demos, and so like this is like the important thing that I need to see at a glance. Also, if you add the date and you use Notion calendar, it's automatically in your calendar.
Notion calendar is amazing. Definitely love it.
And you just go into like individual event planning and inside each. Pretty easy. It's like nothing. Yeah. DevRel, again, similar kind of thing. I like to have, just like in events, like the overview of like your philosophy of DevRel, 5 words, just put it in there, your playbook, and then this is how we just manage CFPs. Yeah. Pretty straightforward.
Do you have a database template in there as well?
Yeah. This is the template.
Yeah. No, I'm so sorry. Like inside, like for the entries, do you have also like some pre-structured information again, or this? Like,
just 3 bullet points.
Yeah.
Like this is what each conference thing should have. Conference details, submission details, and the link. Just to make it easier for devs to apply.
Perfect.
Yeah, and then this is
about Notion, right? You can just like tailor it to your specific workflow, and then like if that helps you get the work done, then you're exactly at the right position.
Yeah, it's awesome. This is a leadership one that I was talking about. This is my favorite one. I think this is like the one that's helped me the most, like ever. Like anything that I've done in Notion, I swear by this one. Nice. So this is me and Danny go through this every single month. We look at like what's going on in events. I did this as a template. Like you can name it whatever, but like events, written things, video things, paid things, other marketing thing, and another.
Yeah.
And so you go into each of these and you're like, okay, so right in the card, you can see like the cadence, how many, and the audience. So here we would have like developers or product managers or whatever. And so you just check in like, okay, so if the goal is to have 3 events per month, okay, what happened in January? We had this, and we do some tracking here too, just in case like when we usually meet to discuss this once a month, but sometimes we'll do like one more during the month. And if it's like checking in, it's good to just have that here too. And then that's sort of how it goes. Blogs. So if you want to do like one type of blog post per month, here like you have the ideas, what's gotten executed, blah, 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 each month. And that's pretty much it. Like,
creates visibility, right? That's the powerful thing. Like these things, like you could do that in pen and paper. You don't need Notion specifically for it. There are like other tools where you could do that, but Notion makes it just so easy to set this up and like have it in one place, like with together with a lot of other things. And the biggest change in all this is just to have that process in place. Right? Like if you know that, okay, all the things I need to report to my manager or like to the person I'm reporting to, if I have that all in one place and I don't need to scramble into 10 minutes before our one-on-one to figure out, well, what did I actually do last month? Right? Like what were my, like, like we all know what we're responsible for, but it can be tough to like remember like, okay, these are the things. And you have with Notion or like in any tool set up and just like with the checklist ready to go, this like creates just so much peace of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I go in here like not just for meeting with Danny. Like I go in here often just to like, make sure we're doing everything that we said that we're going to do, because it can get to be a lot. So it's good to just see all of it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I have one more. This one is just my personal, like, balls in my court, I call it, accountability tracker. What I really like about it is that it's not just like a list of things, right? Like maybe if you just like open up your Apple Notes and write this thing, and then it just stays there forever and you have no context on it or whatever. Yeah. So I just kind of made a list that would help me have everything that people ask of me. Like if somebody sends me a Slack and I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do it tomorrow. Or if like, Danny's like, we're going to launch this amazing thing in 3 months. I'll write it in here, right? Because I want to start prepping, or I want to, so just like everything from little to small, stuff that I have to do.
Yeah.
And here you're right, like just like the timeline very quick, what you've done. And this is what I like. I love writing a little bit of more context. So I used to only just do statuses and then I would forget. So it's very helpful. Like for example, with Danny and I have like a weekly one-on-one. I can look in balls in my court and see all my blockers, comments of things. And then that's all. I don't even have to structure our call. I have it. I've already done it. It's this list.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, I think that's actually like a super good tip for like people who are just like starting out with Notion and not like quite sure like how to set up their databases. It's like thinking about this, like the context, right? Like in every database you have something that's the main thing, right? In this case, like the balls in your court, or another case like the blog posts. And then there are a lot of like attributes that describe the thing, that give context about it, that are things that you need to know about it. So if you just like go through that, right, and think about, okay, like what do I need to know about a blog post? What do I need to know about a ball in my court? And then like create those properties. You've already like, that's like 80% of like now setting up your database on the first go. That gets you so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to know, okay, I know this is not your interview, but how did you get started with Notion?
Well, for me, it was very random. It was as part, like I was falling down that like productivity rabbit hole on YouTube. It all started with that I had like some pain in my hands, and then so I looked up some ways to, like, it was still in law school, right? Like, and I wanted to figure out, okay, like how can I digitalize my progress more, but I can't like really type on my computer because of my hands right now. So I want to write, but I want to write on my iPad. So how do I take digital notes on my iPad? And like that started like a huge like rabbit hole on YouTube from like some Ali Abdaal videos on how he takes notes on this one. And like the algorithm is very good at recommending the next thing in line. And like I was watching like a video of Ali Abdaal who had like a thing that like helped him, like a sort of like journal thingy that helped him remember like, okay, what was something interesting that happened one day. I was like, that's so amazing. Like I need that in my life. I'm studying all day just for the bar exam. Like every day looks the same. So if I have something that keeps reminding me of all the nice things that might help. So that's the first touch point with Notion. And then from there, like it was just like a slippery slope. I started using it more and more. Like I think I don't know, like I deleted the whole thing that I had set up like at least 6 times in the first 6 months because it became always such a mess, right? And you really like it. Takes a while to learn how to build a system that actually works.
Yeah.
But through a lot of trial and error and maybe a lot of playing around, suddenly turned into a career. So yeah, that's how I got started with Notion.
That's so cool. So like you started like through YouTube, and now you are one of those YouTubes.
Yes. Now I am one of these. So maybe I can inspire someone else to ditch their law career instead. No career advice, but it is quite fun, so I can recommend it.
Yeah, me too. Go ditch your law career. You lawyers, stop it. Go make Notion content.
Exactly. Oh, well, this was amazing. I think we're like coming up on our time, but thank you so much for taking the time and being here today and sharing all these things of like how you use Notion, how Jam uses Notion. That has been super fun. I absolutely loved talking to you about that, and excited to see what else you guys are doing.
Thanks so much for having me, Matthias. This was super, super fun. Having good on everybody.
Amazing, yeah. And again, right, if you wanna find out more about Jam, Ivana, anything, right, like we'll link everything down below in the comments in the description, and then you can check it out.
Yeah. Oh, and one plug, Jam integrates with Notion, so you can send bug reports straight to Notion from Jam. So, well, not from Jam, like from your browser. So you just click Jam, and then that's your bug report, and it's automatically created in whatever database you want, and you don't have to do anything. So that's awesome.
Yes, we should have mentioned it probably earlier, but like we'll do it now. It's really cool. It's really smooth, super easy. Your developer will gonna love it, and you can like integrate it all in one system. Perfect.
Yeah.
So much for my interview with Ivana. Now, if this got you all excited about Notion and you also want to use it at your company, but don't know quite where to start, well, don't worry. I have a complete tutorial that will help you go from a blank page to a complete company setup. Just click here, and I will see you in a few seconds.